Hey everyone, here I am again with some more music to feed your imagination. Today's piece is quite different to the ones that we've looked at before because it has a story, and today we're going to be thinking much more about the story than anything else. The story is called The Pied Piper of Hamelin, and it's based on a legend. Now, a legend is a story that has its beginnings in something real that happened, but no one quite knows the exact truth of what went on. If you're really interested in this story and what might be behind it, you can go and read some good articles on Wikipedia about it afterwards. The BBC have also done a really interesting article, which you can find if you Google. But I want you to use your imagination in this lesson, so we'll leave the fact-finding for afterwards. You might have heard of the Pied Piper before. He has a role to play in Shrek Forever After as Rumpelstiltskin's bounty hunter. Now, a bounty hunter is someone who tracks wanted people down for a cash reward. Here's our introduction to the Pied Piper from that film, and it might give us a few clues about the character we'll meet in the story today.
Stiltskin, he's here.
Nice. Pied Piper. How was your commute? Oh, God.
You call this guy a bounty hunter? What's he gonna do? Flute those ogres a lullaby? What? Oh, no. Oh! Okay, got it! Oh, take it! Stop!
All right, that's enough. Looks like it's time to pay the piper. Griselda, seriously, it's time to pay the piper. Now go get my checkbook. Go! Move! Get out! Things are getting real sloppy around here.
So it seems the Pied Piper was a flute player, just like me, who could control people by playing his flute. How cool would that be? Sadly, I can't do that. If I could, I would make my children do all the housework and bring me cups of tea. Lots of people have been fascinated by the legend of the Pied Piper and have written stories, poems and music to tell the story. We're going to look at a piece of music written by an English composer called Gordon Jacob, written in 1959, and a very famous poem written by Robert Browning in 1842. Because it's old, the poem uses some unusual language, but don't worry about that. You'll find you can understand the gist of what it's about and work out what some of the odd words mean from that. When I was growing up, my grandpa's party piece was reciting the whole of this poem. It's super long, 303 lines, and he loved to recite it to us at any occasion. Today we won't look at all 303 lines, but we will look at the key points in the story. The story starts in a city called Hamelin in Germany. If you go to Hamelin today, they make the most of this story. There's even a guy whose job it is to dress up as the Pied Piper and wander around the town all day for the tourists. Anyway, Hamelin has a problem. It's infested by rats. Just listen to the beginning of this poem.
Hamelin town's in Brunswick, by famous Hanover City. The River Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side, a pleasanter spot you never spied. But when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats! They fought the dogs and killed the cats and bit the babies in the cradles and ate the cheeses out of the vats and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles, split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nests inside men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning their speaking with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayors are noddy, and as for our corporation, shocking." At this, the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation.
So the mayor and his people are worried. They know they need to sort the problem out, but what are they to do? Well, here comes the answer.
An hour they sat in council. At length the mayor broke silence. "For a guilder I'd mine ermine gown sell. I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I've scratched it so, and all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap. Just as he said this, what should hap at the chamber door but a gentle tap? Bless us, cried the mayor, what's that? Come in, the mayor cried, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His queer long coat from heel to head was half of yellow and half of red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes, each like a pin, and light loose hair, yet swarthy skin, no tuft on cheek nor beard on chin, but lips where smile went out and in. There was no guessing his kith and kin, and nobody could enough admire the tall man and his quaint attire. He advanced to the council table, and, "Please, your honours," said he, "I'm able, by means of a secret charm, to draw all creatures living beneath the sun that creep or swim or fly or run after me so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper." And here they noticed round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe, to match with his coat of the self-same check, and at the scarf's end hung a pipe. And his fingers they noticed were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon this pipe, as low it dangled over his vesture so old-fangled. "Yet," said he, "poor piper as I am, in Tartary I freed the Cham last June from his huge swarms of gnats. I eased in Asia the Nizam of a monstrous brood of vampire bats, and as for what your brain bewilders, if I can rid your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders?" 50,000 was the exclamation of the astonished mayor and corporation.
And this is where today's piece comes in. Gordon Jacob wrote 2 pieces of music to describe parts of the story, and the first one fits in here. This is what Mr. Jacob thinks the Pied Piper might have played. He's called it the spell. Whilst I play, use some coloured pens or pencils to draw the things you hear in the music. Don't worry, you can't get this wrong. It's all about your imagination. Listen to the result of this spell.
And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, you heard as if an army muttered, and the muttering grew to a grumbling, and the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses the rats came tumbling. Great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, grey rats, tawny rats, grave old plodders, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers. Families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, followed the piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished.
The second piece that Mr. Jacob wrote describes the rats going with the piper. He's called it The March to the River Weser, and this time he's written it for the piccolo, which is the flute's baby sister. It's higher and more squeaky, and I think it's a very good choice for the music about rats, because this is what they sound like. See if you can imagine the scene as I play. Can you draw some of what you hear, the rats dancing along and tumbling over one another? Wow! Result! What a relief for everyone. So the piper goes back to the mayor, and the mayor gives him the 1,000 guilders he'd agreed, and that's the end of the story. It would be a good story, but the best stories always have a twist, don't they? And this one does too. Buckle up, we're not finished yet. Listen to this.
You should have heard the Hamlin people ringing the bells till they rocked the steeple. Go, cried the mayor, and get long poles, poke out the nests and block up the holes, consult with carpenters and builders, and leave in our town not even a trace of the rats. When suddenly up the face of the piper perked in the marketplace with a, first, if you please, my 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders? The mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too. For council dinners made rare havoc with claret, moselle, Van de Grave and Hock, and half the money would replenish their cellar's biggest butt with Rhenish, to pay this sum to a wandering fellow with a gypsy coat of red and yellow. Beside, quoth the mayor with a knowing wink, our business was done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, and what's dead can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we're not the folks to shrink from the duty of giving you something to drink, and as a matter of money to put in your poke. But as for guilders, what we spoke of them, as you very well know, was in joke. Besides, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders? Come, take 50.
Ah, who saw that coming? The mayor doesn't want to pay, and he reckons the piper can't make him since all the rats are dead now. But I think the piper has a little something else up his sleeve. Listen up.
Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe of smooth straight cane. And ere he blew 3 notes, such sweet soft notes as yet musician's cunning never gave the enraptured air, there was a rustling that seemed like a bustling of merry crowds justling at pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping and little tongues chattering, and like fowls in a farmyard when barley is scattering, out came the children running. All the little boys and girls with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, tripping and skipping ran merrily after the wonderful music with shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood as if they were changed into blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry to the children merrily skipping by, could only follow with the eye that joyous crowd at the piper's back. But how the mayor was on the rack, and the wretched council bosoms beat as the piper turned from the high street to where the Weser rolled its waters right in the way of their sons and daughters. However, he turned from south to west, and to Koppelberg Hill his steps addressed, and after him the children pressed. Great was the joy in every breast. He never can cross that mighty top. He's forced to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, as they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed, and the piper advanced, and the children followed. And when all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was lame, and could not dance the whole of the way, and in after years, if you would blame his sadness, he was used to say, "It's dull in our town since my playmates left. I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me. For he led us, he said, to a joyous land, joining the town and just at hand, where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers put forth a fairer hue. And everything was strange and new. The sparrows were brighter than peacocks here, and their dogs outran our fallow deer. And honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagles' wings. And just as I became assured my lame foot would be speedily cured, the music stopped, and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left alone against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more." The mayor sent east, west, north and south, to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever it was men's lot to find him, silver and gold to his heart's content, if he'd only return the way he went, and bring the children behind him. But all was now a lost endeavour. The pipers and dancers were gone forever.
What a sad story. Who knows where the children ended up? Maybe it was in some magical faraway land, but imagine how much all the grown-ups missed them, and imagine how bad the mayor felt for not keeping his promise. Can you hear how the music helped us to understand today's story? Here's the whole piece again, both bits. See if you can use your imagination to let the story play out in your head. So that's today's piece for your imagination to munch on. If you want some homework, you could go and find some other versions of this story. Russell Brand, the comedian, has written a book based on the story for children. Have a little listen to this.
It was as if some magical being who lives in the sky and the trees, the rivers and beneath our thoughts knew the people of Hamelin were no good. For on this day, their most cherished day, without warning, a gang of rats bowled into the town and began causing a right rumpus. I assure you these were no ordinary rats. They were as big as cats and afraid of nothing. They were oily and slick and wore eye patches and carried flick knives and could machine gun butt pellets out of their egg holes whenever they fancied. Even though they called themselves an anarcho-egalitarian rat collective, that means there's no rules and no one's in charge. In reality, Casper was in charge. He had too much fur on his body and none on his head. He looked like a pink egg made of skin in a Turkish wrestler's armpit. In his constant attendance were a pair of ratty twins, Gianna and Paul, who were both his wives. In anarcho-egalitarian rat collectives, polygamy, more than one wife, is common. It's not as common for one of the wives to be male, but these rats were real badasses. They lived mostly on land, but they were like hairy little villains of the sea. Pirates!
That's it for today. Next time we're going to explore the sailor's hornpipe together.